How's it going, everyone? This is Mike, and welcome back to my channel. Long time no see. I've been taking a little time off from YouTube, and so I'm being pulled back in by my friend 4K Frank, who tagged me for this thing that's going around. It's a top 10 list. Let's see, what's the title of the tag? It's just 10 genres, 10 different films, one film from each genre. Favorites from, yeah, that covers it. Favorite film from 10 different genres. So, anyway, let's get started. Try to make sense with all this. I'll give it my best shot. The first category that he had listed was science fiction. Now, there are a lot of science fiction movies that I love, that I enjoy watching again and again, but my number one will always be, always, Forbidden Planet from the year 1956. Walter Pidgeon, Leslie Nielsen, Anne Francis, Jack Kelly, Earl Halleman, in a very futuristic sci-fi movie made at MGM, big budget film, very loosely based on Shakespeare's The Tempest, and it's just a terrific film with great special effects for their time. One of the coolest robots that ever lived, Robbie the Robot, and lots of great electronic musical sounds for the soundtrack. Um, I know a lot of people probably think this is definitely outdated. I don't care. I love this movie, always have. I've seen it a couple of times on the big screen. The first time was way back in the 70s when I was still in my 20s. It played for one day or one night, I guess, on a college campus, the theater that was right in the middle of the campus of the University of Illinois. And I was so excited to see this movie on the big screen for the first time because I'd always seen it on television. And all these snarky college kids who were only a couple of years younger than I was at the time, they were all laughing at it, and I was really hurt by it that they didn't appreciate it. But anyway, if any of you have not seen this, give it a chance. I think you might appreciate it. Next up is westerns, and I'm picking a favorite that I always list when I do my top 100 films of all time. This is always on the list. This is from 1960, The Unforgiven, directed by John Huston. Great cast of actors. We have Burt Lancaster and Audrey Hepburn. We have Charles Bickford. We have Audie Murphy, John Saxon. Lillian Gish is in it. And it's just a great movie that has to do with people in the Old West during the times when there were fights between the settlers and the Indians, and there were a lot of massacres going on from both sides. And this family decides to take in a little Indian girl who has been orphaned, and they raise her as their child, with her thinking that she's white, and that's played by Audrey Hepburn. Of course, would not be politically correct today because you can't have people playing different races and all that sort of thing. But it's just a very good film, a very different kind of Western. Uh, Great performances, especially by Burt Lancaster, is always way over the top with drama, and matched perfectly by Audrey Hepburn. The Unforgiven. Next up is an action film. Action is not my number one category, and I don't really seek out that many action films to look at. Recently, my good friend Jordan Thompson sent me a film that he liked, and he wanted me to see it. He happens to be a big fan of Shia LaBeouf, the actor, who I didn't know very much about. So he sent me this movie called Eagle Eye. I knew nothing about it, wasn't really all that enthusiastic about getting into it. But once I did, I really enjoyed it. I really had a great time watching this. It's like a nonstop thrill ride. It's the best way to describe it. After a kind of a somber beginning, it picks up and it never stops till the very end. Billy Bob Thornton is also in it. Who is the actress Michelle Monaghan, whom I don't think I've ever seen in anything else. She's very good. Rosario Dawson is in it. Very cool movie that has to do with political corruption, uh, national security, secrets, lies, runaway computer. Very good action film. I was quite surprised. Really enjoyed it. Next up, the category is drama, and I picked a film that I think, if I had to decide to make a statement, this is a film that ever has walked the earth should see at one time or another, and that is The Miracle Worker from 1962. A great, great movie based on, of course, real characters. The lady Helen Keller, who was deaf and blind, not quite from birth, but I guess she had a serious illness as a baby, as a child, and lost her ability to hear and to see. Um, in this, and then later on, her family decides that she has to have some sort of training and some education and learn how to communicate. So they hire this woman named Annie Sullivan, and she comes and she teaches Helen all about how to communicate by spelling letters out with her hand and all this sort of thing. It's an amazing story. Anne Bancroft plays the teacher. Patty Duke plays Helen Keller, and it's based on a play in which these two actresses also were playing these parts that ran for something like 719 performances beginning in 1959. And Patty Duke had played in every single performance. I guess Anne Bancroft at some point was replaced by Suzanne Plachette, but Patty Duke was there for the whole thing. So when this came to films, both of these women won Academy Awards: Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, and it's just amazing. The play was actually based on a television play that was on the old TV show called Playhouse 90, in which Helen Keller was played by another great child actress named Patty McCormick, who of course is known for The Bad Seed. But I think everybody should see this. Wonderful film. Next up is comic book films. I can't think of a better one than the original Superman from 1978, starring Christopher Reeve, Jackie Cooper, Gene Hackman, Margot Kidder. I love this movie so much. I like the sequels too. I'm not too crazy about the third and fourth movies, but I definitely love the first two. And it was just pure magic. I remember seeing this in the theater when it first came out, and to me it was better than Star Wars. Sorry, sorry. I know people don't want to hear that, but yeah, I really like this a lot. So for me, Christopher Reeve will always be the cinematic Superman, just like George Reeves will always be the television Superman. All right. Next up is horror. Now, I like so many horror films. I've got like a top five that I always list the same five or maybe six movies in that category. I'm going to talk about one that I don't talk about very often, at least maybe not for a while, and that is The Innocence from 1961. Um, Deborah Carr, in a great performance as a governess in England who goes to this beautiful manor house way out in the middle of nothing, and she has to take care of these two children, brother and sister, played by Pamela Franklin and Martin Stevens. And she begins to see things that nobody else can see. She hears things. She begins to suspect that the former governess who died and the man who was head of the groundskeeper or something, this evil kind of a lustful character. These two people are both dead. They died tragically. They were involved with each other romantically, sexually, in a very abusive relationship, and sort of in full view of these two children who just adored them and looked up to them. This governess begins to suspect that these ghosts have come back to take possession of these two children. Now, the viewer can see and hear everything that the governess can see. We don't know if anybody else can. It's very ambiguous about whether or not the two children can actually see these ghosts and that they are somehow knowingly involved in this. It's very psychologically weird. You never really know what's going on. You think you know, but you're not sure. This woman is displaying all the traits of being manic depressive, seeing and hearing things that no one else can see. But the viewer can see all that she does see. It's very, very creepy. It's based on, well, actually, this is based on a play that was called The Innocents. And that was based on this very creepy short novel by Henry James called The Turn of the Screw, which is really a good read. But when they made the movie, I don't know what the play was like, but when they made the movie, they just opened it up just beautifully. I mean, just incredibly. And there was a question a couple of days ago on Twitter. Somebody asked a question: if you were going to encourage somebody who didn't like black and white movies to start appreciating them, what movie or movies would you pick to get them charged up? And I would definitely pick this one because the cinematography is just incredible. The atmosphere, the darkness, it's just beautiful to look at. And I'll be quiet. The Innocence, great movie. Next up is Adventure. Now Frank had gotten this mixed up. I guess it was supposed to originally be well, it was supposed to be adventure. He got it mixed up as fantasy. And so anyway, I don't really get into fantasy films that much, so I'm going to go back to talking about adventure. And this is a film that I saw in a film class not that long ago for the great films of 1939. I'd never seen this before, and it's Gunga Din. Gunga Din on this Cary Grant compilation. Gunga Din also stars, let's see, Victor McLaglen and Douglas Fairbanks Jr. I wasn't that excited about seeing it. It has to do with British soldiers in India and getting involved with fighting some of the rebels and all this. And I can't remember at this. My memory is so bad. It wasn't that long that I saw it. Long ago that I saw it, but I've already forgotten some of the details. But I remember being very excited by this and very moved. Gunga Din is actually the name of a character in the film who has a very important part of the story, and I was quite surprised at how exciting and how enjoyable and how moving this really was. So Gunga Din, I definitely recommend that if you have not seen it. Next up is animation, and I'm not a big animation freak. Frank talked about Toy Story, and that I happen to have the first Toy Story, so I'm going to pick that as well. I didn't know anything about this until I took a class in Pixar films several years ago and saw several things, including the first two. Did we see the first two or three Toy Stories? And I just totally fell in love with it. And I haven't yet gotten around to seeing the one that came out a few years later, Toy Story 4, but I definitely would like to see it. I have this one and Toy Story 3. Do not have number two, but yeah, I really think this is wonderful. So highly recommended. Next up is comedy. This is a movie that I didn't see until fairly recently. I I picked this up on sale at Barnes and Noble. I've always been kind of curious about it, but it always escaped my radar all these decades. But my friend James Higgins, this is one of his favorite films because he's a big fan of Jimmy Stewart. He's talked about this many times. And this is Harvey, about this guy who thinks he thinks he sees this 6 foot tall rabbit named Harvey, and I laughed my ass off. This is a great movie. Wow, something I will watch again and again. Harvey, finally got around to seeing this. James Stewart. Anyway, so that's basically the story. He's perfectly happy with his friend the rabbit. Everybody else is, what the hell is going on? And it was, yeah, you begin to wonder maybe there is a rabbit. Maybe. All right, finally, romance. Okay, this is a movie that I loved since I was a kid. I watched it again last night just to get reacquainted with it. From 1945, this is Love Letters, starring Jennifer Jones, Joseph Cotton, Gladys Cooper is in it, Cecil Kellaway, Anita Louise. Just a beautiful movie. Jennifer Jones is so enchanting and so lovable that it's all about. Let's see, Joseph Cotton plays a soldier in World War II. They're all supposed to be English, but only a few of them actually have English accents. The two leads do not. Anyway, he's a soldier in World War II, and one of his best friends is wants to write letters to his girlfriend back home, played by Jennifer Jones, but he doesn't know how to write beautiful letters. So he asks Joseph Cotton to write the letters for him, which he does, and Joseph Cotton begins to sort of fall in love with the responses he's getting from this woman because he's writing to her what he is feeling. He's supposedly speaking for someone else, and then he begins speaking for himself. And he also feels bad that he's deceiving this woman because the boyfriend is not really that serious and that dedicated and that much of a man with high character. So it ends up in tragedy, and then he finally meets this woman. It's a very detailed, very complicated, convoluted story, but it's absolutely beautiful. Screenplay by none other than Ayn Rand. and it's very poetic. It's very beautiful. Also have that beautiful theme song, "Love Letters," which is played incessantly throughout the film, and that helps quite a bit. Beautiful locations. It's kind of like when you look at it, it's kind of like looking at the scenes in Wuthering Heights. You know, the country scenes with the beautiful the old houses and all that, and it's get very gothic and very dark in some places. Very much worth seeing. Jennifer Jones was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress. Great movie. And those are my 10 films, 10 different genres. Frank, thank you very much again for making me wake up and do something. I appreciate it. And comments are welcome. Take care, folks.